the Weekly Show with David J. Maloney.
This week, David chats with the legendary blues guitarist Joe Bonamassa.
And now, here's your host, David J. Maloney.
Welcome, everyone, to The Weekly Show. I'm your host, David G. Maloney. On tonight's show, we've got a really special guest. He's known colloquially as the modern king of the blues, having had 26 Billboard #1s in his career at just 46 years old. His new album, Blues Deluxe Volume 2, just hit shelves on October 6th. Here to chat about his incredible career, his new album, his upcoming tour, is none other than blues master Joe Bonamassa. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Our featured guest tonight is considered by many to be the modern king of the blues, and his 26 Billboard #1s are a testament to that fact. Here to chat about his incredible career, his brand new album, Blues Deluxe Volume 2, and his current tour, which has stops right here on the Gulf Coast this coming March in both Pensacola and Biloxi, is legendary guitarist Joe Bonamassa. Joe, welcome to the show.
How you doing? Nice to see you.
It's good to see you. Hey, I'd like to start off at the beginning for you. What first drew you to the guitar rather than some other instrument?
Well, my dad played, and that's how I got to it. Most kids who play are, introduced by a relative. In my case, it was my father. And there was always, it goes back to my grandfather's guitar, and I just started messing with it. You hear that story time and time again. And yeah, and my father had a great, music collection, and my grandfather played trumpet. My great grandfather played trumpet, and over 100 years of the Bonamassas making a living in the music business, which is kind of crazy to think about it, especially how this business goes.
Do you remember what your first guitar was?
Yeah, my first guitar was an Erlewine, a Chiquita guitar, which was designed as a travel guitar in the 80s. Late 70s, and it fit into a little bag, and it was about 3/4 scale, and it looked, it was designed for people that just drag on airplanes and in their hotel rooms and practice on it when their other guitars were in the truck or something like that.
Any chance you still got that? Because I know
I don't have that one. I have one like it, but I don't have that one. Up until the last 20 years, for me to get a new guitar, something had to go, and that's just how it is being a collector.
Before we talk about your incredible new album, I just ran across a few biography questions that seemed almost too fantastic to be true, but I know they are. How in the world does it come about that a preteen Joe Bonamassa finds himself opening for the legendary B.B. King at I think what were you, 12 or something?
Oh, so 12, yeah. I was playing gigs in upstate New York, and a promoter called and was like, "Hey, do you want to open up for B.B. King?" And I was like, "Absolutely." They called my parents, and luckily it was on a Saturday, and because I was in 7th or 8th grade at the time, and it was one of those things where I was very lucky early on. I got to meet my heroes and got to play with a lot of them, and I got to study with guitar players like Danny Gatton, and got to meet Willie Dixon and all these cats. So, I was lucky enough to, I'm 46, but I was young enough in the business to where these guys were still around, got to play with Albert Collins, got to, see these people before they died,
Yeah. Was it through that incredible connection that you met your future bandmates in Bloodline? You end up playing with a storied bunch of music families with kids, like Miles Davis, like Robbie Krieger, Barry Oakley. Reading it on paper, it sounds like almost like a junior supergroup.
Well, it was a junior supergroup. It was kind of the way the label saw it. But that was 30 years ago, which is, believe it or not, it's like the record came out 30 years ago, 1994. 29, but for our purposes being, let's call it 30. But yeah, I was a teenager, I was 13 or 14 when I was doing that stuff and making records when didn't even have a driver's license. But, I was working with Warren Haynes, and I was down in Memphis with Joe Hardy and all those guys. It was a special time, especially for a kid, just getting to see this all, for the first time.
Your debut solo album, A New Day Yesterday, actually had a guest appearance by Greg Allman, one of the all-time greats in my book. How did that collaboration come about?
Well, it came through Tom Dowd, who produced the record. And Tom produced all the Allman stuff from basically day one till, the last album record. And that introduction came through Tom Dowd, and I ultimately ended up touring with Greg and doing a bunch of shows with him and his solo band. He was super nice, and and Leslie West was on that record, and Rick Derringer was on that record. So it was pretty cool, to see that 25 years ago come to fruition, and it was just one of those things where I was a kid. I didn't realize I was going to be on stage or playing with any of these people. It just happened to work out that way.
And not only did you have B.B. King and Greg Allman on your CV, but you did a duet at Royal Albert Hall with none other than Eric Clapton. What stands out to you about that moment looking back?
Well, it was the big break that I needed. And I can never thank Eric enough for doing that for me. He didn't have to. And I just asked him, I wrote him a letter, and he liked me enough to say, hey, listen, I'll come play a song with you at your gig,
That's just so cool.
And so cool. And so nice. And such a, he's done a lot for a lot of people. He doesn't get a lot of credit for that, but he's done a lot for a lot of us, giving us stages and things like that. So I can never repay him the debt of gratitude that he had. I owe him for the rest of my life, because I don't think you and I'd be having this conversation if it wasn't for that moment.
That show also featured the incredible Paul Rodgers, who I know was one of your heroes. What were you feeling the first time you played with Paul, and what do you remember about that moment?
Paul's been a hero of mine since day one when I heard Free. Tons of Sobs was the record, for me, and him and Andy Frazier and Simon Kirke and Paul Kossoff. I mean, it's like the fact that they're not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is criminal. I mean, that band has influenced so many rock bands, and still to this day is, like, to me, it's the perfect four-piece. There's just not a better four-piece in my book. And Paul's voice is just insane. I mean, to this day, he's in the same keys. He's it's just a absolute champion and one of the nicest people in the world. So
I was wondering, or did anything ever compete with the blues in your musical tastes?
Absolutely. I mean, I like all kinds of, I like prog rock. I like, Bruce Hornsby. I like, all this kind of stuff, I like some Americana, not all of it. I like, classical music. I like, some opera. The blues was always kind of the mainstay, but not to the point where it prevented me from listening to other music.
Your new album, Blues Deluxe Volume 2, just dropped and has been getting some fantastic reviews and endorsements. When did the journey towards this new album start for you?
A year and a half ago. I want to do something for the 20th anniversary of the record that basically saved my career. And we didn't have any bonus tracks. We didn't have anything really. From the first album, which we did with $10,000 in a week, mixed and mastered. And so I said, well, let's do another volume. Let's do Blues Deluxe Volume 2. Because like Blues Deluxe, when that came out, there was never supposed to be a second volume. It was like, this was sink or swim moment. So I wasn't even thinking about, well, I'll put out a Volume 2 eventually. Like, no way. That wasn't happening, And so ultimately, that was something for me that was it's a special record that we were able to survive 20 years after the first one. And it came out this week in October of 2023. I don't know when this is going to air, but the actual anniversary was June of 2023. But the fact that vinyl takes so much time to make and order, and it took 6 months, we were delayed, but it's the 20th anniversary year. So not to the day, but for the Anoraks, but don't worry about it.
I was going to ask you what you made you finally land on the title Blues Deluxe Volume 2 all these years after Volume 1, but obviously because the 20th anniversary.
It was the 20th anniversary, and it could have been Volume 2 or 2. But there was no guarantees there was going to be a 2.
What was your biggest hope or goal in making this new album?
I just wanted to see if I'm a better guitar player and a better singer than I was 20 years ago. Like, that was the question. But I could not have tackled these songs that I sang on this record 20 years ago. I wasn't that kind of singer. And that's a testament to a guy named Ron Anderson, the late great Ron Anderson, who trained me vocally for years, and just some hard work and perseverance. And that's kind of how it is.
Speaking of the blues as a genre itself, what drew you so heavily in your taste to the more British interpretation of blues as opposed to, say, American blues music?
I got to Mississippi and Chicago through London because my father he loved Rory Gallagher. He loved, he's Irish, and Gary Moore, also Irish. But he loved all that Clapton, Beck Page, John Mayall and the Blues Breakers, Alexis Corner, even Jethro Tull, and all those bands, Cream. They're all covering blues songs, and that was a lot of suburban white kids in the 80s. They're like 70s and 80s got their start listening to that kind of music, and then you go like, well, I don't even know what a Muddy Waters is, and then you're like, oh, okay, now I'm starting to see the lights coming on slowly. But it's just the truth. A lot of people will lie to you and say they immerse themselves in the deep stuff first, but most of us 40 somethings heard Stevie Ray before we got into the deeper stuff.
And I noticed on this record, your covers were seemingly more chosen from American artists, which I thought was a nice, interesting kind of twist. Yeah,
it was a different thing. I mean, because sometimes you would cover. We did Lazy Poker Blues from Fleetwood Mac, but a lot of times, I don't want to be covering a cover. I didn't want to do. I did Jeff Beck's Blues Deluxe. That was the title of the first album, title of the song, but we did a lot of that kind of stuff anyway. Along the way. So these are just some of my favorite songs.
Walk us through the creation and the story behind the first single off the record, Is It Safe to Go Home, which I listened to last night and absolutely loved. What's the story there?
It's Josh's tune. And when I heard it, he pitched it to me. I was like, we should do a Gary Moore treatment to this. We need the obligatory Gary Moore moment on the record. Big Syrian guitar head and some leads. And that's pretty much it.
You co-wrote Hope You Realize It with Grammy winner Tom Hambridge. What was that collaboration like, and how did that come about?
Tom and I have written a lot of songs together. We have written a lot of songs, probably close to 50 or 75. I mean, I got to count them up. It's crazy. We wrote a lot of the Eric Gales record together. He and I write really well together, and we had this one kind of like sitting around. We hadn't cut it yet, and I said, we need something upbeat and funky, and ta-da, here we go.
I wonder if the guy in the video is still running.
I don't know. I never had anything like this. I don't appear in my own videos in case.
I know. Yeah. But
every year they're like, hey, you want a cameo? I'm like, not a chance. You let me know how it turns out. I don't do that anymore. I did one when I was like 23 and Scarred for Life will never appear in any, mock-up video of anything. I'll be on a DVD all night long, but that's because that's a live show. But as far as in the video, that's not happening.
Is there any story from recording this album that's kind of stuck out with you the most so far? Any special story that
I think the most interesting thing about the record is because the first one took 7 days mixed and mastered. Okay. And the second one, even though we had budgets, a much bigger budget for the second one than the first, it took less time.
Oh, wow.
It actually took less time. I think we knocked it out. I think we did 8 songs in 3 days, and then we did we did two songs one day, and then a strings and horns day, and then we mixed it. I mean, it was the fact that we were able to do it so quickly. It wasn't like we were shaving time because we didn't have time. We had plenty of time. We could have done it in a month, but it's just like, okay, we got it done. Next, done. It just great musicians, a vision. Like everybody's on the same page. It's all cut with my band. And they're really, really solid cats, and we some of the best in the world, and then there's me, which just trying to keep up with it all, and turns out it worked out fine.
24 Hour Blues, Bobby Blue Bland standout. What made you pick that song from his catalog for this album? I mean, was there a specific musical idea you were trying to get with it or something?
I just love the song. And it's got melody. It's a great, it's a great record, I mean, and it was really sophisticated. I mean, Larry Carlton's playing on the original one. And that record that Bobby did, I've been talking about myself for all day. So the title of the record's like escaping my mind. We did the song with Mark Broussard, the title track. Anyway, I'll think about it when we're off the. Anyway, that record is so strong, and it's Bobby at the height of his powers, and just making commercial blues. They were going for hits back then. BB had hits, Bobby had hits. I mean, it's not like this. We're complacent now in the blues that we expect nothing from radio, and we're always, right on point. But back then, AM radio playing the hell out of BB King and Bobby Bland. They're playing, Thriller's Gone was a pop hit. Try that. The last blues song I think was a pop hit in my opinion was Tracy Chapman. Give Me One Reason. That's a blues song, and that was a hit.
Yep. And I'll turn that car around. Let's see. So what's one song off this record that kind of surprised you the most with how it turned out?
I would say. I was not. You Drive a Hard Bargain. I wasn't sure we could pull off, but I'm actually happy that we did it. At first, I was like, I don't know if I could cut that, but we did, and it came out good, and I'm proud of that version.
I've spoken with a lot of musicians about which song might be their favorite. It's kind of like picking which kid is your favorite. But if you had to kind of pick one of the songs, which one are you most excited to get out in the world?
Well, I think at this point they've all been released. By the way, the title of the Bobby Bland album I was talking about is called Dreamer. So it just came to my mind. And Mark Broussard did a wonderful cover of that, by the way, for his SOS4, the blues stuff that the blues album that we did. Just killed it. I mean, just such a great version of that song. Well, I mean, they're all going to get out there eventually. There's no singles. There's no real running order anymore. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just all kind of
a different world.
Spotify or Apple Music. It's just, well, this song's out of order. Doesn't matter. So enjoy one, enjoy them all, enjoy none of them. It's just, I don't care anymore. I'm been doing this way too long. I've seen the business change a lot, and the perpetual optimist in me says, okay, somebody's going to put it, play it in order. I don't care. Just like, if you enjoy one song, you want to make your own mashup of it, great. You want to mix it with other stuff, great. Stream away, kids, stream away.
Is there one song, and not necessarily from this album, and not even necessarily yours, whether it be yours or someone else's, that you enjoy, that gives the most back to you emotionally playing?
I enjoy playing Self-Inflicted Wounds. I thought that, I think that song was a couple albums ago, and Redemption album. I thought that was really good, and we still play it to this day, and it's still pretty cool. It's still a good, it's a showstopper. People love it.
And I'll tell you, for me, when you played The Thrill Is Gone, I mean, live, I mean, to me,
that's, I rarely do that. Because it's not a cover. It should be done in the right context, not all. You know, it's the same. It's you want to save that for the right context. We used to do that. You know, we used to do that forever. You know, but.
Well, it's quite special when you do. Are there any artists that you have on your bucket list that you've yet to collaborate with?
You know, there's a bunch of people we've been talking to about doing stuff with, and we just got to get around to it. So, you know, hopefully in the next year we'll start kind of ticking the boxes, and you know, we have a list, and we've been in contact and doing some collaborative stuff, and you know, but it's a lot of work just to be out touring now. You know, this is one of the biggest years touring of my career. We've done a lot.
It's a jam-packed tour. I was looking at the tour dates, and
it's unrelenting. So there's not a lot of time to really just sit back and take a breath and go, oh, okay, well, I got to get to that. There's just so much stuff to get to.
And I was going to ask you about that. I mean, it's a rather city-packed tour, and you've got shows in March right here on the Gulf Coast. What can fans expect to see and hear at your shows on this tour?
It'll probably be a hybrid show of Blues Deluxe Volume 2. We'll get to the classics, whatever they are. But don't ask me about 2 weeks from now, let alone 2024. I'm like, I don't know. Well, I'll get to it when I get to it. So I'll let you know in February of 2024.
Joe, I know you're tight on time today. So thank you so much for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, the incredible Joe Bonamassa.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
That's our show for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. And a special thanks to Joe Bonamassa for joining us. Stay safe, everyone.